What's going on, guys? So this video is going to be hopefully very informative for those of you who are constantly trying to figure out what trucks get the best fuel economy based on watching YouTube videos or based on watching any type of content that tries to non-scientifically replicate different tests or different environments to give you an example of what fuel economy may look like under different conditions. So let me explain that. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Alright, so I am in the 2023 GMC Sierra Denali 1500. It's a half-ton truck with the remarkably fuel-efficient 3-liter Duramax diesel engine. This is the LZO engine. And yeah, this thing gets really good fuel economy. However, whenever I test for fuel economy, I'm going to be very honest with you, my test isn't going to be very accurate. And the reason the tests I do won't be very accurate, mainly because environmental conditions that I can't control or technical conditions that are just kind of obscure to me. Let me give you an example. So if I take this truck and I fill it up from empty to full, and I take it on a 200-mile trip, and I want to give you what the estimated fuel economy of this vehicle is on that trip, it's only going to be an estimate, and there's going to be a relatively high margin of error. Let me explain why. First of all, the conditions you can control are actually a lot more limited than you might think. And to be able to see specifically what your full capacity of a fuel tank is also going to be very difficult to control. Main reason why is unless you run the truck down to empty, to where the truck essentially stalls out because there's no more fuel left in the tank, it would be very difficult for you to precisely say if you've filled it up to the same level every time. In a scenario where you may encounter that would be just emptying it out again to empty, going to a fuel pump, and then filling it all the way up to full, knowing exactly how much fuel you have in the tank and how much is left before the tank overflows. So again, what you would actually have to do is run the truck until it is completely bone dry, and then fill it up to the manufacturer's claimed capacity of the tank, which would probably be 24 gallons in the case of this truck. So the first thing you're doing bad there is running your truck completely empty. A diesel truck, you can actually do quite a bit of damage to it if you literally run it completely out of fuel, because then you starve the fuel system of what it needs most to operate, and you can potentially cause major issues with your engine. So first and foremost, that's the biggest challenge. You want to drain your truck completely empty and then put exactly 24 gallons of fuel in it to be able to test it. Otherwise, the two examples may be different whenever it comes time to refill your vehicle. Now, that is a capacity test. That is to see exactly how far you can get on a full tank of fuel. The second variable is understanding conditions you have absolutely zero control over. If you want to try to get reasonably accurate with capacity, you can. You can do the math and you can kind of work it out by saying, well, if I've used this much fuel over a certain period of time and I know I had 24 gallons in the truck, well, obviously my fuel economy is going to be, this number. However, that is not as easy as you would think, because that's the math related to how you fill your truck up or how you fill your vehicle up in general. When it comes to conditions, again, you have absolutely zero control over, such as atmospheric conditions, geographical conditions, things that can impact the vehicle in a way that you just don't have a 100% controlled environment. Well, that's where you start running into variances that can occur. So when the EPA tests vehicles, they test vehicles in a very controlled environment, an almost unrealistic environment, mainly because, again, the only way you can truly get an accurate reading is to have full control over the entire environment, so you can really dictate what type of scenarios the truck is going to encounter while it's expending fuel. In the case of a YouTube channel, a reviewer, or even a TV show trying to do it, there's limited capabilities in terms of controlling your environment. So let's say you have a closed course and it's a closed circuit course and you're just going in a circle. A lot of people would say, well, that's a pretty controlled environment and it's going to be pretty accurate. That is true, but again, there's certain variables that you can't control. For instance, what if the wind slightly changes? What if the wind changes direction and a tailwind is now a headwind, or the wind just increases in speed by 1 or 2 miles per hour? All of those variables are going to significantly impact the fuel economy of the vehicle, because it will impact the aerodynamics of the vehicle and how it actually cuts through or attacks air. Also, environmental conditions you can't control. Are you following the exact track that the first test or a previous test had taken when performing the test? Were you exactly in the tire grooves that you were on? Were you in a scenario where the vehicle deviated off slightly, or the person driving the vehicle and doing the test was not 100% controlling the throttle, controlling the speed the same way as another test that was performed? Because as precise as we can get the vehicles, and until you get them on cruise control, and even when you get them on cruise control, there are still variables outside of your control that will dictate specifically how the truck is driving and how the fuel is being used. And another one a lot of folks don't consider as well is the change in temperature. Again, atmospherical conditions that can really change or modify how a vehicle performs, how the engine has to perform, and how it is running to be able to accomplish the same type of scenario in a previous test. So again, unless you have vehicles in a 100% controlled environment, and that generally is going to mean in an indoor closed course, to where you probably have it on a dyno and you control the airflow, you control the payload, you control everything about how the truck is physically running and using fuel, you really aren't going to have a 100% accurate readout. So even though I take trips in this truck and I say, okay, I'm going by the computer, I'm going by the dash display of what it's telling me my miles per gallon are, you know, I know that's not accurate. I know that's probably not even close to accurate. But a lot of people think, well, if you do it manually, if you do the math yourself, you're going to be a lot more accurate. Surprisingly enough, you may not be as accurate as you think, simply because, again, all the conditions I talked about, how much fuel you're actually putting in the vehicle, how much fuel is remaining, and what that buffer is before the fuel nozzle actually clicks off. You know, it's cool to say this truck gets 30.5 miles per gallon on a trip that I take that's, 150 miles long, but the reality of it is, it's probably either better than that or worse than that by a significant margin, only because of wind that I encounter during that trip, only because of the road conditions, only because of stop and go situations, or because of, how hot it is or cold it is, or the specific track that I'm following at that given time, or how I'm managing the throttle. So yeah, let me know what you think about this. Leave a comment below. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this topic. And if you've done some type of an MPG test that you feel is more accurate than others, that can give you truly accurate results without having to be in an indoor, closed, controlled environment. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.